නැත්නම් quantitative. Right? So there are two categories of them: continuous data and discrete data. So we'll take first, right? So they are the data, they are the numerical outcomes of a variable. There are two types: continuous data, the first type, right? Example: plant height, measured in centimeters, right? Production, measured in kilogram. Body weight, measured in grams. Okay, so we can come up with volume, right? Speed, the time, whatever, right? But the feature here is so these data are not disconnected. The data, continuous data are not disconnected. Say, so we have measured height in centimeter. So we have one plant 1 centimeter, plant 2 centimeters. So if we take centimeter 1 and centimeter 2, right, we have large number of values, many values, no gaps. So these kind of data are called continuous data. So if I ask you to measure, say if I ask to measure 1 kg of sugar, right? Can you do this? Can you do it? මට කියන්න හරියටම ඔයගොල්ලන්ට කිලෝග්‍රෑම් එකක් සීනි මනින්න කිව්වොත් මනින්න පුළුවන්. Can someone answer me? If I ask to measure 1 kilo of sugar exactly, can you do it? අපි මුදලාලි ගාවට ගිහිල්ලා කිලෝ එකක් ඉල්ලනවා සීනි. අර පරිදාන තරාදියෙන් කිලෝ එකක් දෙනවා. අපි ඒක අරන් ගිහලා ෆුඩ් සිටියේ තරාදිය උඩින් තිබ්බොත් එහෙම අර ඉලෙක්ට්‍රොනික තරාදියේ කිලෝ 1.3යි කියලා එන්න පුළුවන්. නැත්නම් කිලෝ 1.05යි. ඈ ග්‍රෑම් 50ක් වැඩි. ඊට පස්සේ අපි ෆුඩ් සිටියෙන් මැන ගන්නවා කිලෝ එකක්. එයා කිලෝ එකක් කියලා මැනලා දෙනවා. අපි ලැබ් එකට ගිහිල්ලා ඇනලිටිකල් බැලන්ස් එකකින් කරපුවාම කිලෝ 1.05යි. So nobody on the earth can measure exactly a point measurement of a continuous data. No point measures, cannot measure, cannot get. Point measurements of continuous data. අපිට ගන්න බෑ. The second type of quantitative data, is discrete data. They are not, they are, so these data, the data points, consecutive data points of this data are disjoint. There are gaps. There are gaps between data points. Example. One, number of accidents. Right? Say this is y. Y can take, right, a value 0, 1, 2, 3, up to infinity. Do you have any number between 1 and 2? Do we have 1.5? Can we have 1.5 accidents? There are no half accidents. Accident is an accident. Right? They are not half accidents. So these kind of data are called discrete data. I hope it makes sense. Any question from this? Interval එකක් කොහොමද? ඒකක් බිලෙන්නේ?
Yes, sir.
Everybody? හැමෝටම ඕනද? එකයි yes එකයි අහුනේ. What about the others? Okay. So take a 10 minutes break. 11යි 10යි 11යි 20ට ආයෙ ක්ලාස් එක පටන් ගන්නවා. පටන් අරන් දිග. Can all of you hear me? මාව ඇහෙනවද?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. We will start the lesson now. Okay. So the second, the classification of data is scales of measurements. So which is more coherent classification of data. Right? In this context, so we will categorize data into 4 classes depending on these 4 characteristics. The first one is identity, the second one is magnitude, equal interval between 2 consecutive data points, and presence of an absolute 0 with the data. So these are the 4 characteristics that we use to classify data into 4 classes. Okay, let's talk about the first one. The first class of data, that the first scales of measure is nominal scale. The numbers are we usually use to label the group of classes, or numbers, or pictures, or characters, or symbols will be used to symbolize, right, the data in this class. So these kind of data has only an identity, and they do not have a magnitude, equal interval, or true 0. So I have given here 2 examples. The first example is gender. So we have male and female. The second example is the color of eyes, of eye color. So there are blue eyes, there are green eyes, and there are brown eyes. Right? So if you take the first example, gender, if you take male and female, we have recognized so what is male and what is female. But we are not able to order this data. So we cannot order these data either from ascending order or descending order because these data do not have any magnitude. And there is no interval defined in between male and female. And there is no zero value for these data. So these kind of data are called nominal data. You can see nominal data under qualitative category. Okay, so the second category that we will discuss is the ordinal scale, the ordinal data. So in addition to the identity, the ordinal data has some magnitude. But the interval between two consecutive data points of the data in ordinal scale are not well defined and they do not have a zero value. So these are the examples, these are few examples. The first example is product ranked by customers. The customers rank products as bad products, medium products, and best products. Right? The product that I label as bad may be labeled as someone else as medium product, medium quality product. Sometimes a product that I label as best product may be recognized someone else as a bad product. So this is the reason why I would say there are no clear interval between two consecutive data points because the best is defined differently by different people. So with this data, you don't have any zero value, but we can order these things. The best is the highest one, the medium is the second one, and the lower is the third one. So we can order this data. So because of this, right, these data are called ordinal data. The ordinal data carries more information than the nominal data because so we can have the idea of magnitude. Okay, so let's move to the third class. So which is the interval data. There are some data which has identity, magnitude, and the interval between two consecutive data points are fixed. Whether you measure it or I measure, the interval between two consecutive data points are fixed. If I measure it as 10, whether you measure it or someone else measures it, it's 10. But the problem with this data is they do not have a true zero. The true zero of this data is not well defined. The one classical example is the temperature, right? The temperature. If you measure temperature as 10 centigrade, if you measure, I measure, or someone else measure it, it will be 10 centigrades. It doesn't change. The difference between 10 centigrades and 11 centigrade is 1. So this value does not change. But the problem is this. So if you measure temperature and identify the temperature as 0 with centigrades, and if you measure the same by Fahrenheit, that value would not be 0. It's 32, different value. So therefore, the zero value of this data type is dependent on the scale of or the units of the measurements. So there is no true value for the temperature. Another example is the calendar time. It is not the time, right? It's calendar time. If you take time, it's in a different scale. The calendar time also, one example for the data in the interval scale. We don't have much examples under interval scale. So these are the only two examples that I could find in my whole lifetime. Right? All right. If you take the calendar time is measured in differently. BC, right? Then Hijri and the Buddhist years. So there are different kinds of years. The zero value for these is different. Right? So these are some examples of data in the interval scale. But these data are quantitative data. These data are qualitative, ordinal data are qualitative, but interval data are quantitative data. The last class is the ratio scale, right? So these data, the data in ratio scale has identity, magnitude, interval, and the true zero. The examples are height, weight, salary, number of accidents, number of pest counts, number of coconut, right? All these things are coming under the ratio scale. They have identity, magnitude, equal interval between two consecutive data points and true zero. The zero weight is zero, whether it's measured in kilogram, tons, pounds, like grams, centigrams, the zero value is zero. It doesn't change. The zero salary is zero, whether it is measured in dollars, rupees, or whatever, right? Yuan, yen, whatever, the zero value is zero. So these are the data which has more information. So we can divide ratio scale data into two as continuous data and discrete data. Okay, right. I hope it makes sense. I hope now you have a fair understanding about so what is data and why we need data. Is it clear? Any question up to this? Any question up to this? ප්‍රශ්න මොනවද තියෙනවද? No? Okay, if you do not have questions, so let's move to data collection. So we will collect data through many exercises. So some of them are listed here. We can do collect data by experiencing or by observation. We can collect data from a census. We can run a sample survey and we can do some experiments to get data. So these are some methods of data collection. Right. Okay, let me talk a little more about methods of data collection. Right? Okay, observation, the first one. Right? So we will be going to the field. And experience it. Right? The second one is census. Right? Collect data from all units in the population. So this is costly, right? Time consuming, need more resources, when population size is increasing. Right? Okay. The other type is surveying, sample survey. Third one is sample survey. Right? We collect data, the process of collecting, right, data from a sample, right, with or without an enumerator. We collect data in this case. We collect data on what has already happened or taking place. No control, not interventions. No intervenes, no experiments. We do not do anything. What we observe is what is happening through the sample survey. Right? There are different kinds of sample surveys. Types of one type is a enumerator driven sample surveys. B, self driven. In the enumerator driven sample survey, so we will interview the person who is giving us data. In the self driven sample surveys, the person himself provides the data about him. Right? So this is what we do. Okay? Right. The second is the second classification is by the mood. Structured will so let me explain A and B with more details. So if you talk about the enumerator driven sample surveys, so they are taken through interviews. So we do interview, right? We do interviews. With unstructured questions, with open questions. Interviews with structured questions. Third one is interviews with semi-structured questions. So we will be doing it in different ways. So sometimes we will interview people, right, without any guideline, with open questions. What is your idea about the prices, market prices of this? So sometimes we will ask, we will do interviews with, with structured questions. Maybe we will be doing a questionnaire survey. We can have a questionnaire survey, right? We can have a questionnaire survey. We can have questionnaire survey. Participate the survey. Open interviews. So they are examples of enumerator driven surveys. So we will take the second one. Self-driven sample surveys. Examples. So one example here, telephone survey. Example, mail survey. So we mail the questionnaire or data collection sheet to the informant, and the informant will fill it and return us, right? Then Google search, Google survey. Email. So we send the questionnaire, right, to the informant, and the person will fill it and return to us. So these are some different survey formats that we can use to collect data. The other one is the experiment. The fourth one is experiments. So they are mostly happen with non-human objects, right? So we intervene or we do treatment or changes to experimental units, to sample units, and let changes to happen. We do and experience. So these are the experiments. So we can do, we can use different fertilizers on different crops and see the changes. We can feed animals with different feeds and see the performance. So we can treat animals with different medicine and see the difference. But we can't do so with the human objects. It's hard. The experimentation on human objects is very difficult and very hard and rare. But experiments with crops, animals, and other non-living objects is very common. So we will be collecting data by doing things, by making changes. Right? In experiments, we will be collecting data making changes. This is what we do. Right. So this is about the different methods of data collection. All right. So if we do collect data by different methods, there are few things matters. The one thing, right? Two things that matter is precision and the accuracy of data. What does it measure by the accuracy? The accuracy is the correctness of measured value or nearness to the true value of the particular parameter. So by collecting data, what we are trying to do is estimating the parameters, right? So by collecting data, what we expect is to study or to estimate or to anticipate the population parameters. So we estimate population parameters using sample data. The estimated value of population parameters are called statistics. Now, what we estimate from the sample may not be the true value of the population. If what we estimate is exactly as the true value of the parameter, the accuracy of our estimates is 100%. So, which is very rare, right? So, there is very unlikely to estimate, right, the parameter as exactly from the sample data. Right? The difference between the true population parameter and the estimated value of the parameter is called bias. Right? The one parameter is the population mean. The population mean is if you add all values of the population and divide it by population size, we get the population mean, right? And we denote sample mean by x bar. So it is, right, all total of values of the sample divided by the sample size. The difference between A and, so let me change this. I will change it, right? So I won't replace this. I will replace this with this mu. And so this should be mu, right? The difference between mu and x bar is the bias. So then we need to estimate, or we need to collect data to estimate parameters as unbiased as possible. Right? අපි estimate කරන්න parameters as unbiased as possible. කියන්නේ අපි sample data ගන්න ඕනේ පුළුවන් තරම් population data වලට සමාන වෙන්න. Right? එහෙම එකක් තමයි කියන්නේ. How do you know our measurements are biased? So we will compare with, right, true values. So we need to minimize the bias in our measurements. So we identify the presence of bias, reasons for bias, and avoid them. right? And avoid them. And we need to avoid other causes, right, of bias, to calibrate the instruments and measurements, and 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 get sample. They are right. We want to get representative samples. If we have a representative sample, the chance of estimating an unbiased estimate is less. The second concern is the precision. The definition of the precision is a measure of scatter in data caused by the random error. The precision is, right, the repeatability. If you repeat it several times and see the same answer, so that means the precision of our measurements is very high. So if we repeat the experiments and see different other options, the outcomes which are very different from each other, so then the precision would be less. Then the precision would be less. So this is the way how you view the accuracy and the precision. So see, so this is our dartboard, right? And in the dartboard, right, we have in the middle the target. This is the target. So if you hit, right, some arrows, say I have 3 arrows, and I have 3 chances, I hit it like this. And another person has got 3 chances and hit the arrows like this. 3 arrows, right? So this is person A. So this is from me, right? So this is person A. This is person B. So what about the accuracy of the work done by person A? The accuracy is nearness to the target. So this person, the person A is not that near to the target, but person B has hit the darts near the targets. The accuracy of the person B is greater than the accuracy of the person A. So what about the precision? So if you look at the precision, it is different. The precision with person A is very high, although its measurements are biased, they are not accurate, but they have hit 3 times to the same place. So this person's, the precision is higher than the precision of the second person. So this is the way how you pretty much understand the difference between precision and the accuracy. There may be precise but inaccurate results. There may be accurate but not precise results. Right? Okay. So these are the measures of precision, variation, standard deviation, confidence interval, and the coefficient of variability, which we will learn later. So therefore, I don't discuss it. So how do you maximize the precision of our measurement? So we will use careful techniques and make multiple measurements. By doing this, we can maximize the precision of our. The other way we can maximize we can assure precision and accuracy by taking representative samples, right? Representative samples. So that means if our sample represents the population 100%, the precision of our measurements as well as the accuracy of our measurements will be high, right? The problem is the way how we get a precision sample, representative sample, right? So there should be a way to get a representative sample. But if you look at the populations, so there are different things taking place in the populations. The variability of the measurements of the characteristics that we measure may be sometimes high. So there may be some other factors that influences the variability of our measurements. In presence of this situation, right? So this process of getting representative sample has become very complicated. So therefore, the scientists, the statisticians, the mathematicians, they have suggested different procedures, different protocols to get representative sample. So the protocols of getting representative sample is sampling methods, right? Is sampling methods. So there are two kinds of sampling methods. One is non-probability sampling method, and the other one is the probability sampling methods. The difference between non-probability sampling method and the probability sampling method is, so we will select the individuals in the population into the sample, so based on the law of probability by the probability sampling methods, where we give equal opportunity to the individuals to be selected into the sample. So this is the way how we explain the probability sampling. But with the non-probability sampling, we do not do so. It doesn't depend on the probability law. The non-probability sampling depends on how much the person who is sampling has a fair knowledge about the population. So we will be selecting individuals into the sample based on our knowledge about the variability of the population. So based on that, so we will select individuals, right, into the population such that it represents the population. But there is no any mathematical or statistical way or probabilistic way of getting individuals into the sample. And there is no assurance that each and every individual in the population get the same chance to be elected into the sample. එහෙම තමයි කතාව තියෙන්නේ. අපිට probability sampling කරන්නේ probability law එක අනුව අපි හැම individual කෙනෙකුටම ඉන්න population එකේ සමාන chance එකක් දෙනවා sample එකට select වෙන්න. හැබැයි non probability sampling අපි කරන්නේ probability law එකට අනුව නෙමෙයි sampling කරන කෙනාගේ දැනුම උඩ population එක ගැන. එතකොට අපි හැම individual කෙනෙකුටම සමාන chance එකක් ලබා දෙන්නේ නැහැ sample එකට select වෙන්න. අපි අපේ දැනුම අනුව අපි අදහස අනුව අපි pick කර ගන්නවා. හරි මේ individuals ටික ගත්තොත් ඒගොල්ලෝ population represent කරයි කියලා. So there are some steps of doing non-probability sampling associated with different methods, right? And there is a science, statistical science or mathematical science behind different methods of probability sampling, right? But usually, so when we do experiment for external purposes, so that to convince everybody, we go with probability sampling methods. But if you do work for our internal purposes, right? So there is no harm of using non-probability sampling methods. So if you talk about sampling methods, So we need to understand few terminologies in detail. The first one is target population. So which is the set of all units that comprises the items of interest in the scientific study. But there are certain instances we do not have access to every individual in the target population. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට අපි යුද්ධ කාලේ අපි අලි ගැන ස්ටඩි එකක් කරනවා නම් උතුරු නැගෙනහිර පැත්තේ ඉන්න අලියෝ අපිට බලන්න යන්න බැරුව තිබ්බා. හැබැයි අපි එහෙම කියලා අලි ගැන ස්ටඩි කරන්නේ නැතුව ඉන්නවද? නෑ, ස්ටඩි කරනවා. What we did was, so we studied about elephants, taking the elephants in the areas where there is no woo. So with this, right, the term sample population is connected. So sometimes there are certain parts of the population for which we do not have access, or they are not available for sampling. Then what we do is we will define the portion of the population, so where we get the sample. That portion is called sample population. The sampling unit is a member of population on which we take measurements. So which is called sampling unit. The sampling frame is a list of individuals in the population. The sample support is mostly useful when we do field experiments. So in the field, we get a big sample, so from where we make small samples in the laboratory. That big sample is called the sample support. So this is sometimes known as the composite sample. The measurement protocol is the procedure that we make measurements, and the sampling design is the design, the sampling method, sample size, right? All these things. The measurement protocol, all these includes in the sampling design. Okay, so this is about the different terminologies. Okay, let's try to talk about, so in this discussion mostly focus on talking about the probability sampling methods. So I have given here 4 commonly used probability sampling methods handling some practical situations in the field. So these sampling methods are respectively simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified random sampling, and cluster sampling. So first I will take the simple random sampling and explain you what we will be doing there. Simple random sampling. So we usually apply simple random samples to a population where there is less variation in our measurements. So usually we will employ simple random sampling for a homogeneous or equally likely population, the less variable population. So if you do so, the efficiency of sampling is very high. But when the variability of our measurements is very high in the population, if you want to maintain accuracy, so we need to maintain high sample sizes. So in this case, we will give each and every individual in the population an equal chance to be selected into the population without restrictions. The selection may be done with replacement or without replacement. The usually samples obtained from a table of random numbers or computer random number generator. අපිට සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි ඔයගොල්ලෝ Google search එකක් ගහලා බලුවොත් different samplers are there. So we can use such sampler to make samples. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි කරන්නේ අපිට ඕන ලොතරැයි එකක් අදිනවා වගේ කරන්න පුළුවන්. ලොතරැයි එකකින් කරන්නේ simple random sampling එකක්. So we will label our individuals and put all labels into a box and take the number of individuals to sample in a random manner. This can be done either with replacement or without replacement. So with replacement, one individual get more chances, right, to be selected, right? More number of one individual gets more chance of appearing, right? More number of appearing in the sample. But with replacement, an individual get only one chance to be appeared in the sample. no repeated measurements. All right. So this is the way how we accommodate simple random sampling. As I said, right? So in this case, if we want to accommodate simple random sampling, we must have a sampling frame, right? We must have a sampling frame. Right? So otherwise, right, so we cannot label them properly. We cannot label them properly. Okay? But there are certain instances, so where we do not have a sampling frame. So in a situation like that, we can accommodate systematic sampling. Or there are certain instances, we don't have a clear-cut idea about the total sample size. We have only rough idea. For an example, if you say we want to do the customer satisfaction survey, or we need to do a customer survey, right? අපිට customer survey එකක් කරන්න ඕන නම් අපේ customer base එක මෙච්චරයි කියන අපිට අදහසක් තියෙනවා, but we don't have exactly an idea. So what would be the exact number? ඒ වගේම we don't have a list of customers. So in a situation like that, so we will accommodate the systematic random sampling. So in this case, so we will denote the sample size by simple n and the population size by the capital N. This should be capital N. Right. So in this case, what we do is we will sample individuals, right, at equal intervals while picking the first person randomly from the population. So this is what we do. So then අපි කරන්නේ අපි ගාව ඉන්න ඕන මිනිස්සු 1000ක් ඒ 1000 පෝලිමට පෝලිං ගස්සලා එක්කෙනෙක් රැන්ඩම්ලි තෝරගෙන එතන ඉඳන් සමාන ඉන්ටර්වල් වලින් අපි මිනිස්සු තෝරගෙන යනවා. So this is the way how we accommodate systematic sampling. So in this case, we need to understand, so what would be the interval where we do sampling. අපි interval එක define කරන්නේ sample size එකෙන් population size එක බෙදපුවාම අපිට ඒ interval එක එනවා. So we take that interval as simple k. So then what we do is we will sample individuals at kth interval starting from a randomly selected point from the population. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ගත්තාම අපිට හිතන්න මිනිස්සු 64ක population එකක් තියෙනවා. අපිට sample size එක ගන්න ඕනේ 8යි. එතකොට අපි කොච්චර interval එකකින්ද කරන්න ඕනේ 64 8ෙන් බෙදපුවම 8යි. So we will pick someone randomly from the population. අපි එක්කෙනෙක් pick කරා randomly, right? මෙයා randomly pick කරා කියන්නේ 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8% අපි ගත්තා. Right? ඒ වගේ අපි තෝරගෙන යනවා. So that would be the way how we do select. Okay. Right. So this is called systematic sample, which is mostly applied when there is no proper sampling frame. අපි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් customer survey එකක් කරනකොට අපි අදාළ ආයතනයට ගිහිල්ලා නැත්නම් food city එකට ගියා කියන්නකො. අපි එතෙන්ට ගිහලා we will select the first customer randomly and interview, and thereafter we will say the interval is 20. Thereafter we will pick, right, customers at 20 intervals, the 20th customer, the 40th customer, right, the 60th customer, like that we will be collecting it. And there are certain instances, right, there is a particular variable So that influence our data, our measurements. For an example, so suppose we want to measure the suppose we want to measure the carrying capacity of a set of population. So if you want to measure the carrying capacity of a population, so we get some issues, because the carrying capacity depends on the gender. Gender is one other characteristic, so which influence our measurements, so which is the carrying capacity. So if we get more males into our sample, our estimations will be overwhelming. If we get more females into the sample, our estimates will be underwhelming. So this is a problem. So if we take a random sample, we have a chance of getting more females into the sample or more males into the sample. So this is a problem. So in a situation like this, what we do is we divide the population into two strata, one strata for male, the other strata for female, right? And we divide the sample size proportionate to the number of males and the females in the population, right? And thereafter, so we will take that number of males randomly from the male population and other number of females randomly from the female population. So this type of sampling method is called stratified random sampling method. Stratified random sampling methods. All right. So there is another way, there is another situation. Although we have selected the random samples, simple random samples, or stratified random samples, there are situations we find difficult to administer it. Sometimes if we get a simple random sample, there may be a person in a hilly area where we don't have access to collect data. There may be a very tall tree, we have less opportunity to make the measurements. So there may be extreme things like that, which refrains us administering the data collection process. In such a situation, so we will divide the population into clusters depending on the geographical orientation of the population. And we will sample using simple random sampling or any other sampling technique. So from the clusters to get representative samples from each cluster. So this is called cluster sampling. So this is mostly done to facilitate the data collection process, to make the data collection and data collection process easy. But the advantage with cluster sampling is, so we need to maintain high sample sizes to get the accuracy. All right, so we discussed the methods of data collection. And this concludes our lecture today. Happy? Any question? Api ඊගා දවසේ we will be talking about summary statistics, right? In two categories: descriptive summary measures, numerical summary measures and graphical summary measures. In the next class. All right. Any question after this? No questions or yes questions? Anybody?
Excuse me, sir. Do you upload this presentation today?
Yeah, definitely. I will do it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So if you do not have questions, okay, we will stop the class at this point and we will see you in the next class. The date will be notified soon. Right. Okay, we will see you.